This is Health Unfiltered, the podcast where we cut through the bullshit and get honest about fitness, nutrition, and mental wellness.
Amy Novotny, welcome. How are you doing?
Doing well, Josh. Thanks for having me on today. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Me too. I'm really excited. I have to apologize for rescheduling or canceling on you last week. I'm a typical type A personality and I just try to schedule too much. So thank you so much for rescheduling with me.
No worries at all. I'm glad this worked out.
Me too. I'm really excited to talk about calming down the nervous system to alleviate pain, stress, and anxiety. But before we get into that, can you tell us a little bit about yourself so we can get to know you a little more?
Sure, absolutely. I grew up in Arizona and I went to grad school. I got a doctorate in physical therapy and returned to Arizona and started my career doing physical therapy for a while. While I was doing physical therapy, I started running marathons and longer distances all the way up to 102 miles and
Wow.
even did an Ironman. And so I really got into the fitness and health world, especially the endurance world. And that actually set me off on my journey on calming the nervous system down and going away from physical therapy into nervous system work because as a physical therapist, I was doing everything supposedly perfectly according to what I was trained as a physical therapist, stretching, foam rolling, strengthening, balance training, stability training, high intensity stuff, low intensity stuff, everything that you could imagine. I was implementing it. I still had aches and pains. And that rubbed me wrong because if I was following all of my instructions and I was still having some issues running 26 miles, why in the world would I expect others to be fully alleviated of their pain? And so that's when I shifted into nervous system work and started to run marathons pain free, 50 milers pain free. It helped me drop off 14 minutes off my marathon time, and I blew through the qualifying marks for Boston. Just it was easy after that, without any changes in my training or anything like that. No changes other than calming the nervous system down. And so once those pieces started falling together for me, I wanted to do this with other people, and so I did develop a technique and long story short, I got hired by a world famous photographer to teach him this. And I traveled with him around the world from the Arctic all the way down to Antarctica for 6 months, coaching him on this process to help him avoid a couple surgeries. And then once I finished that, I came back and decided to start a business. And, businesses kind of ebb and flow. And then COVID happened. And so everything switched to virtual. And so now I work with people worldwide doing this.
What an
Yeah.
incredible story.
It's,
Very
it's a little
awesome.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. So you traveled from the Antarctic all the way to where did you say
So the Arctic in the North Pole, all the way
uh-huh.
to the South Pole, all within a few
Wow.
months. Yeah,
What an incredible trip.
it definitely was. I got to see places I never even imagined and never even knew um, they existed on the map. Obviously, they were there, but they weren't in my knowledge base.
Hmm.
And so it was incredible. And I don't have them behind me, but I do have photos of the emperor penguins and I have a whole side gig of photography and nature photography as well. That's separate from
Wow.
my main work. Yeah.
What was the coolest thing you saw on that trip?
Um, Probably coming up to an emperor penguin that's 4 foot tall and having it look me in the eye a couple feet away from me. So that was really cool. Especially because we got to take a Russian icebreaker that hadn't been in that area for about 8 years and take it to an area of Antarctica that other people don't typically go to. It was in the Weddell Sea, which is where Shackleton, if you're familiar with Shackleton's adventure and the book called
I
Endurance,
am. Hmm.
we went in that area where you have to break through ice to get close enough to it's called Snow Hill Island and getting to the emperor penguin colony. So then we had to take a helicopter up, fly 6 miles across sea ice, get dropped onto sea ice, and then trek over to the emperor penguin colony. And so you're not supposed to approach the penguins, but if they approach you, you get to just sit there and let them look at you. And they weren't familiar with humans, so they didn't know what we were. And so I just kneeled on the ground, and this penguin came right up to me and tapped its beak on my lens of my camera, and I just sat there and froze.
Wow.
And
How
not from
cool.
cold, but froze from shock of it all
Hmm.
happening and just the beauty and of the experience. And there were some tears too.
I could only imagine. Yeah, I just listened recently to Endurance on Audible, and it was
Oh,
a really incredible story. And
yeah.
being able to go there and see that is truly incredible. I had no idea they were 4 feet tall, the emperor
They're
penguins.
they're the biggest penguins in the world.
Wow,
Yeah.
very cool.
Yeah.
So, how is the nervous system linked to pain?
Sure. So back to our real topic at hand.
Yes.
The nervous system talking about is the part of the autonomic nervous system. So the autonomic nervous system has a couple components to it. It has the enteric nervous system, which is your gut and digestion,
Hmm.
the parasympathetic nervous system, which is your ability to calm down, relax, rest, repose, sleep, digest, and then your sympathetic nervous system, which is fight, flight, freeze, and fawn, which is the response that people have when they're people pleasing. They're on edge to people please. That's also a state of high alertness. So I work with people to stop physically stimulating the sympathetic fight or flight system so that the body stops having abnormal muscle contractions that pull
Hmm.
bones and joints out of position and cause impingement of tissues, which leads to pain. So, to break it down a little bit more simply, if we think of we have bones, we have muscles
Hmm.
that act on those bones, and we have nerves that tell the muscles to behave to act on the bones. So, a physical therapy approach, a lot of it is let's move the bones or do something to the muscles externally to try to elicit a change. I said, okay, I don't want to do that. I want to cause a change to the nerves. So they tell the muscles to behave differently. So the bones just
Mm.
get to exist differently. So you have more control over controlling the nerves so that your muscles then behave differently on your bones. So that's what I'm working on is getting the nervous system to calm down so the muscles can release, not by you stretching them or pushing on them, but they release internally and you feel it. So then now your bones and joints slide the way they should. And this works with
Mm.
people who are bone arthritic too. That's how I got to travel
Wow.
around the world. So yeah, it works.
That's a very unique approach.
It is. It took me a while to develop it, but
Hmm.
it's been great for many years now.
How did you develop it?
It was actually when I was training for marathon. So I was running on the treadmill 3 days a week for 8 miles in 55
Wow.
minutes, 3 days a
Hmm.
week. I just built up the time and got there. And when I started working on changing my rib cage position and changing my breathing mechanics, so not breath work, but change how I breathe and the
Hmm.
positioning and the actual anatomical way I breathe, I could get my nervous system to calm down while I was running. So some people are familiar with the cartoon of the coyote and the roadrunner, and the roadrunner's like its legs are moving and the body is just kind of steady. That's kind of how I turned out to be. I could calm my nervous system down so my body was just very still and just relaxed, and my legs just could have a faster and faster turnover. Once I could do that, I could feel that abnormal guarding of my body and the muscles release, my legs just flowed. And so my speed could just go higher and higher without any extra training. And so that's how I could just knock off minutes off my marathon time and run pain free because I could get the nervous system to calm down so the muscles release their abnormal
Hmm.
grip on my body. And so once I developed that and I played with it on myself, I then experimented on other people. And I tried it out. And I asked people, I said, hey, would you mind if we tried this instead of your traditional physical therapy
Yeah,
exercises? Some said yes, some said no. And the ones
of
that said
course.
yes, I said, okay, we're going to go through this. Just bear with me. Let me try this on you. I want you to breathe this way. And, some people are like, what are you doing? But they would see the results happen quickly. They're like, wow, I've been stretching every day, like for the past several years. And now all of a sudden
Mm-hmm.
my body's released and I don't have to stretch. So that's how it developed. And then once I started being able to practice on other people, I could see, okay, that worked, that didn't work. Why did that not
Mm-hmm.
work? And then investigate it further to figure out, okay, what did I miss that it didn't work for this person or for this scenario? And it was a lot of picking, choosing, a lot of putting together and studying the nervous system to figure out why something would work and not work.
I
So,
love that.
yeah.
Are there a few tips that you'd recommend to help you with to change your breathing?
Yeah, we could go over like a couple tips. I will say that it is a process.
Mm-hmm.
And what I teach is I hear all the time it's counterintuitive and goes exact opposite than what most people do.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest things, we'll talk about how you exhale because you can't change how you inhale until you change how you exhale. So when you take a breath in, we want to breathe so you're not belly breathing because that's not really diaphragmatic breathing. You want to breathe so you expand the lungs, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not chest breathing either. So breathe in however you've been trained to breathe in, but then when you exhale, if you exhale with your mouth open as if you have a straw in it, and you can even put a straw in it, I tell people that.
Yeah.
As you blow out, feel your breastbone sink in, feel your
Mm.
belly button go out.
Oh.
Now, when most people exhale, they've been trained to suck their gut in to try to push air out. You don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
That actually doesn't get what you want. In order for your diaphragm to push air out, your belly button needs to come out so the side abs can help pull the ribs down so that you push air out in a natural way, so that your body then releases. And so by doing this, you actually train the body how to calm the nervous system down, which, especially if you're in the fitness world, this is extremely important. It helps the muscles release to their normal resting position instead of staying in a contracted state. And so it's just, this is like this first step of many steps to get you to do this. And
Mm-hmm.
I've done this on high level professional athletes, NFL players who didn't have the ability to release. And they've done rounds and rounds and rounds of physical therapy. They've tried stretching. They've had personal, they have the best of the best. And then
Right.
once they were able to feel this release, they got the motion back that they didn't have. The pain went away, all those things.
That's
So
terrific. Yeah, I try to stretch a few days a week in between my strength training workout, and it's quite a bear to try to stretch, like the hamstrings and my calves are particularly tight. But if you could relax them through breathing, that sounds really amazing.
it
And
is. So it's the breathing part of it is a tool that we use to change your nervous system so you
mhm,
stop over contracting the hamstrings or calves.
yeah,
So just in what you said right there with the calves and the hamstrings, that tells me that your body is in a position of fight or flight
hmm,
and it doesn't know how to calm down. So by stretching, you're trying to get a change in the muscle, but the muscle's not the problem. The muscle's in the correct lane.
yeah,
It's the nervous system that's telling the muscle to
hmm,
contract. So be careful for anyone out there who stretches. Be careful because the problem is not really the muscle. It's how you're positioned and your nervous system. So just be careful because some people can tear things that I'm just always cautious when I hear people have tightness and they're like, I'm stretching. And eventually they overstretch and it's a ligament that stretches or a joint capsule that stretches that shouldn't be stretched. So just be careful.
hmm. That could be bad. It could
Yeah.
be really bad.
Yeah.
And you've got another trick with straws. I think you call it having fun with bubbles. Do you want to
Yes.
talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So to get people to calm down their nervous system in a very quick way, I'll have them practice blowing bubbles into a cup of water. Just put
Hmm.
a little bit of water, take the straw, and you blow bubbles. And so I don't always teach that as a first line of defense. I have that on my website because I was doing a volunteer thing for kids in the hospital. And so I was trying to get them just to at least practice blowing.
Yeah.
When you do bubbles, it's always a little bit more fun. But when you do the bubbles, you're trying to blow out as long as you can without having that response where, oh my gosh, I don't have enough air in. But you're
Mm,
trying to get the belly to spill out and the chest to go in as you exhale and blow bubbles because it can calm your nervous system down and kind of reset you. So it's a fun
very
process
cool.
to go through.
Yeah, it sounds fun. I did see it on your website and I wanted to ask you about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is pain synonymous with aging?
I don't believe it is. I as people age, I say it's not the aging process that can lead to pain. It's the buildup of stressors. So if we think about a mental or emotional stress that we've had, let's say you're in a job and your boss gets mad at you, so now you're stressed. Your body will automatically tighten up all over. We've all felt it.
Mhm. Yeah.
If it tightens up, it's now restricting your bones and joints. The first time it happens, it's not going to restrict them that much. But what typically happens is you feel that, you go about your day, you go home, you're kind of in stress mode, you go to sleep, and you wake up the next day without having done anything to release that abnormal muscle tension. So the nervous system just learned, hey, we're going to keep your muscles tight. And then you go about your
Mm,
next day, you add another stressor. The muscles contract, they pull your bones out of position. And it starts to add up. So it pulls joints out of position, creates wear and tear on your joints. That creates a degeneration of cartilage that we call arthritis. So
hmm
it's not the aging process itself, it's the stressors added up to create the pain. And I say this because I've done this with many 70-year-old people who were scheduled for joint replacements. They were bone on
hmm
bone, doing injections, pills for decades, where you get them to relieve the stress tension out of their muscles, their bones reposition. They don't have to have surgery, they cancel it. They
Wow.
stop doing anti-inflammatories and injections. And then now they can move closer to the way they were as a kid, and their joints are fine, and they can go back to the whatever activity they want to do, whether it's traveling around the world, climbing stairs, climbing a mountain, whatever. But it wasn't the age that was the issue, it was the stress tension that pulled their
hmm
joints out of position. So once you fix it, bones go back into position. Yes, is the cartilage still degenerated? Yes, but that wasn't really the issue. So,
hmm
yeah,
Sounds like all these stressors over time just add up.
they do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, why do people get injured at the gym? And are there any ways to prevent that?
Yes, that's a good long topic. Um, Part of the way that many trainers are taught and the way that they teach people actually, unfortunately, can create pain and keep people in pain. So when I've been to the gym, I've done marathons going to the gym training. I've done marathons and ultra marathons not doing the gym. But when I've gone to the gym, I typically see people are very back dominant. And what I mean by that is
hmm
when they lift weights, whether it's upper body workout, lower body workout, or back workout, or core workout, they like to use the muscles along their spine to do a lot of the work or their lats. And the
Yeah.
problem is their pelvis tips forward and their back muscles become very dominant. So I'll see someone do a lat pull down and they're arching their back as they're pulling down and throwing their chest up. Or I see them do like a triceps press down and they're arching their back as they're doing that. Or they do a bicep curl. And I'm just picking simple
hmm
stuff that people are familiar with.
Yeah.
And as they do it, they're tilting back a little bit and their elbow is coming up. Instead of actually addressing the biceps, they're getting shoulder muscles and back muscles. And
hmm
so when I see that happening, I know they're compromising the back and they're not actually developing the muscles that they're looking for. So often because of that, I see back injuries, nerve injuries related to the back, disc injuries, sciatica, shoulder labral tears, rotator cuff tears, even hip labral tears too.
Ouch.
Because the pelvis is tipped so far forward that you're putting the bones in a position where it rubs against, it's called the labrum, which is kind of It's a part that makes the socket deeper for your hip joint.
Hmm.
So people commonly have injuries when they go to the gym because the way that they work out and the way they strengthen, it encourages those injuries. Not to mention, the more that you use the back muscles, the more the back muscles are compressing on the fight or flight nervous system, which tells your muscles to contract and tighten up. So, not to pick on you, Josh, but I hear people like you mention my hamstrings are tight, my calves are tight.
Hmm.
The fact that you mentioned that your calves are tight tells me you're over dominant using your back. I know that for a fact. Um,
Wow.
and the fact that you said that your hamstrings are tight tells me that your pelvis is tipped forward too much, which is another sign you're overusing your back.
Hmm.
Now, I want you to continue working out. I want you to feel strong. I want you to feel empowered by all that you do in the gym. That goes for anyone. I don't like to take movement away, but
Yeah.
you can adjust how you do that so
Hmm.
that you're not so back dominant and you feel your thighs. And so your calves aren't overworking, but you feel your thighs in a way that your hamstrings don't feel tight because your pelvis is now in a neutral position. And now all of a sudden you feel your body feels stable and strong, but not tight.
Hmm.
It is a process to do that. And so when I work with people as I'm guiding them through that, I'll tell them when we make changes, you have to drop your weight in half, which any
Okay.
weightlifter is like, no. And
Yeah.
I please at least give me a couple reps where you do it the way I want you to do it without using your back at this lower weight.
Hmm.
When they do that, they understand and don't lift the weight back up because now all of a sudden it's hard at half the weight. When they isolate and use muscles that they were supposed to use and not use
Hmm.
their back, all of a sudden it's a heavy burden and they don't go back to their heavier weight. And they stay at the lower weight until they can work their way back up to the heavier weight using appropriate muscles. So I guide people through that process because I don't like to hear, I'm working with a personal trainer who has a back injury and I have a back injury, but they're getting me stronger, but everyone hurts. I hate
Yeah.
hearing. And it's nothing against the personal trainers. They were trained that way. It's just fundamentally we have to adjust how we are showing people to do things and how we teach people to do things. It's no bad will or anything against trainers. I think they serve a very great purpose in this world and do help people, but we just need more education.
Definitely.
Yeah,
So you're saying when you use your back, you're able to move more weight, but you're not focusing specifically on the muscle that you're targeting.
that is part of it. And the back is part of the fight or flight response.
Yeah.
So if you, and let me kind of give you a scenario that helps make sense. So when you see these heavy lifting contests or someone can lift a truck, they're
Hmm.
using their back and they're stimulating the fight or flight nervous system to give them power that they normally can't have, to do something very quickly to get them out of what the body thinks is an emergency situation, but isn't really. You don't want that to be your existence because you want that emergency system to be ready for you when you really need it.
Hmm.
So we have to get people to train so the back isn't the dominant mover. So they use other muscles to be the dominant mover. So the back is their emergency reserve system.
Do you have
And
any specific tips on how to accomplish that?
it's a long process. I don't have
Yeah.
I it's that's part of what I work with people for weeks. It's not something I can just say,
Right.
"Hey, I want you to go do this."
Hmm.
Partly because I don't know what your body looks like when you're lifting a weight to tell you the
Hmm.
right advice for you. And I have to start you at the basics because again, I don't want to hurt you.
Yeah, definitely. So when you work with clients, do you watch them do these exercises so you can gauge where they're at and what they need?
Yep. So everything I do is on Zoom. And so I
Hmm.
work with people around the world and we start with first we have to calm down the nervous system and teach you what that feels like.
Yeah.
Then we can integrate gym exercises if that's what you want to work on to get you
Hmm.
whatever goal you're going for. So I would teach you specific nervous system concepts. Then make sure you understand how to integrate them with the gym workout. So that way, as you're learning, you're getting how to adjust your gym exercises. So then when you come across a new exercise and we're not working together, you're like, oh yeah, okay, I can do this, but I'm going to modify it this way. So I fulfill these concepts for my nervous system, and then I feel what I'm supposed to feel, and then it works out and you're safe. So
Very cool.
yeah.
You're at the gym, you're like, oh yeah, Amy told me I have to relax my nervous system, and it all clicks together.
Yep. Absolutely. I hear
Very
that all
cool.
the time. Yep.
Hmm. So are there ways to help recover after exercise using stairs?
Yep. So you can. So I usually have people go into a specific position where they're squatting and holding onto a stair railing. You can,
Hmm.
if you don't have a railing associated with the stairs, you can sit on the stairs and then bring your knees to your chest too. And you're basically trying to get into a fetal position. And then you kind of do the breathing techniques that I work on with people. And so what you're doing is by curling up and trying to get your back to lessen its curve or round out like a turtle shell, you're working on training the muscles to release their grip on your body. So
Hmm.
if the back muscles start to release and relax, they stop compressing on the nervous system. When they stop compressing on the nervous system, your muscles then get signal, hey, we can let go. And so your body just goes back into its normal muscle resting length. So then I did that after I've done that after many marathons or in the middle of ultra marathons. So
Hmm.
I'll finish, and usually at the last 2/10 of a marathon, I will put myself in fight or flight mode, arch my back, and haul it until the very end. And then as soon as I get past the finish line, I'll grab a pole and I'll squat down. I'll calm my nervous system down. So then I just stand back up and I walk normally again. So, so
Cool.
then it
And
helps.
so, yeah, that squatting or sitting position on the stairs,
Mhm.
is that better than trying to get into like a fetal position, laying down on the floor?
You could get in the fetal position laying down too. That's fine.
Hmm.
Uh, at the gym, that might be a little bit easier than like out in nature or at a race. So
Yeah.
you could easily do that in the gym as well. If you do it in the gym or somewhere lying down, I would put a pillow under your head so you're supported.
Hmm.
Then you can bring your knees to your chest and kind of wrap your arms around your knees, and you could do it that way too.
Cool. Good to know.
Yeah, yeah.
Is there a right way and a wrong way to walk?
There is, and that's a little bit complicated, but there is. So if we think about babies and toddlers, when we first learn how to walk, and
Hmm.
some people may have kids and may relate to this, some may not, but I'm going to try to use it as an example. When they first walk, a kid will arch their back and use their back to walk because it's a fight or flight activity when they first start to walk. They're afraid of
Yeah.
falling.
Hmm.
As they become more skilled, the back muscles start to calm down and they feel their thighs. Once a kid is comfortable walking and doesn't have any other stressors, hopefully, in their life, they're free flowing. And you can see a kid walk, things just move. They don't really think about it. The back's not
Hmm.
arched. They're just roly-poly free flowing. That's ideally how we want to walk as an adult. We start to lose that though, typically in our teen years, sometimes earlier, hopefully not, but usually in teen years and early 20s if we're sitting a lot or high stressed, school, college, work, we start to get more stress and our walking pattern changes. The other way our walking pattern changes is if we've participated in an activity where we're taught chest out, shoulders back, suck up your gut, and stay that way all the time, like marching
Hmm.
band, speech and debate, martial arts, performing arts, military, weightlifting. So if we're taught to hold ourselves like that all the time to excess, our walking pattern will change. All of a sudden, you lose the ability to feel your thighs when you're walking. One of the first questions I ask people is when you're walking, do you feel your hamstrings? Most people
Hmm.
don't. They feel their quads or
Yeah,
their,
I don't.
yeah.
Hmm.
You might feel calves, quads, and low back.
Yeah.
That's what most people feel. They've lost the ability to walk in a stable way. And so, again, we have to work on shifting them so that they can feel those things again. Not to say a little 5-year-old or 10-year-old can feel their muscles, but the muscles are working. But as an adult, we can poke at this and get you to feel it and sense it so your body is stable when you're walking. Because ultimately, the more you can feel hamstrings, inner thighs working with your side abs, you're going to be much more balanced and you'll be more stable, especially as you get older, where people will get worried about balance issues.
Hmm.
Again, it's not always an aging thing, it's you're dominant in muscles that keep you just moving in one plane and keep you in a fight or flight state that puts you in a less balanced state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when people talk about posture, they say like sit up and put your shoulders back, chest out. Is that not optimal, or how does that come into play?
No, it's not. So I kind of describe it as a military posture. The military teaches people to be more of in a fight or flight state, to be on alert.
Mm,
Chest
right.
out, shoulders back, suck up your gut. So that's an excellent posture to be on high alert, to tighten up your body, to be on guard. We're not supposed to exist that way, ideally. We're supposed to be mostly in a relaxed state and occasionally go into that state. So I'm not saying that I want people hunchback of Notre Dame, slouch. That's not good either. That's obviously not a good state. But what we're trying to get is your rib cage back down into a stable position. So if the
Mm,
ribs are like a cylinder, if we think about the rib cage as a cylinder, something that's cylindrical is most stable on a flat base.
yes.
If you take a cylinder and tilt it on an edge, if you think of like a can of soup and you tilt it on an edge, it becomes very unstable. That's what we're doing when we go into the posture that you were describing. When we suck up the gut and lift up our ribs, our back becomes that hinge point.
Hmm.
That's why the back muscles kick in, and that's why the back often fails, and why so many people have low back pain because it's a hinge point. Hinges
Yeah.
always fail. You open and close a door enough times, or a kid plays with something enough times, the hinge is going to break or it wears out. Same thing
Hmm.
with our body. So if we can get the rib cage to drop down in front, so we're more in a stable cylindrical position for a rib cage, now you're going to be in a good posture and your body can feel upright, but not excessively upright. And it also feels loosey goosey. So then you don't feel tight. You feel
Yeah.
flexible, but strong at the same time.
That makes a lot of sense. You see so many people these days hunched over on their phones and on their computers, and it just looks so uncomfortable. And then you have the opposite of people, with their shoulders back, and so you have to try to find a middle ground to avoid that wear and tear, it sounds like.
It is, exactly. And it is a middle ground. And sometimes it's hard for people to know what that middle ground is and what it's supposed to feel like.
Hmm.
And honestly, we get distracted, and I've caught myself too, or I'm slouched or overextended. Like it happens to everyone. And then it's like,
Yeah.
okay, let me get back into a neutral position, work on that. So again, I feel stable but flexible and movable.
So you have to try to be conscious of it and adjust.
Yeah,
Cool.
absolutely. Yeah.
And you have your own podcast, Reawaken Your Health.
Mhm.
What
Yep.
um what kind of stuff do you talk about on there?
Yeah. So I talk about alternative forms of improving someone's health or wellness, whether
Hmm.
it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. Um, it's I'm looking at people who are helping others uniquely shift so that they don't use medication, drugs, or surgery if possible.
Hmm.
I've had interviewed a few surgeons to find out and just educate people on what is out there for certain surgeries. But for the most part, I've guided it towards practitioners who are thinking outside the box. Like I've interviewed a doctor who uses leeches. I've
Hmm.
interviewed a chiropractor who uses some type of laser therapy. And I usually try to find people that I know who are doing good work and can explain the science of it so that people are being educated about what it is they're really doing before they even try going through that type of process to help their health.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, we had Jerry Brazer on a few weeks ago, and he was telling us how he was on over 15 medications, and by just walking and doing the carnivore diet, he was able to lose over 50 pounds. Then he started exercising, and he lost another 50 pounds, and
Oh,
he went down to only four medications. It was
good job.
really, yeah, really powerful story. Are there any other podcasts that you listen to or recommend?
I've hit some of the big ones, like Lewis Howes' School of Greatness. I
Hmm.
like his podcast a lot. I've listened to Rich Roll before. On Purpose with Jay Shetty is a fabulous podcast as well.
Yeah,
Um, Andrew Huberman has a podcast, very scientifically oriented, medically
very
oriented.
high
So
level.
you want to be ready with your science and your body knowledge when you listen to him,
Hmm.
but he still has a lot of great information.
He does. I really enjoy his podcast.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can get really into the weeds on the science and it's hard to follow along, but I try my best.
Yeah. Yeah. But all good. It's all great information though.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Was there anything else you wanted to touch on? Maybe nutrition a little bit? Do you advise people eat like a low carb kind of diet or what nutrition advice do you offer?
Yeah, so when I talk with people or like clients, I see where they're at. I know genetically everyone is slightly different and there's not a
Hmm.
perfect diet. So one person could be carnivore, another person could be vegan, someone could be Mediterranean. It's not always going to work out for um, across the board. So I try to, when I work with people, I see where are they at. Obviously, I'm going to try to get them off of sugar, off of processed foods. Um,
Hmm.
s Some people don't respond well to dairy or gluten, so we have a talk about that. Some people
Yeah.
do fine and look at A2 milk, and so I'm like, if that's where, if your body is comfortable with it, if you're not having inflammation with what you're doing, then obviously go forward. But
Yeah.
it really depends on, is the body in an inflamed state?
Hmm.
Is is there swelling where there shouldn't be? Is the person able to feel things in their body? If not, then we need to look at what are you putting in it that's blocking your ability to sense? Because we know the nervous system is very closely related to the gut.
Hmm.
So if you're eating something and your gut microbiome is not happy, and I'm not talking about just stomach upset, but if you're not able to shift and feel your nervous system calm down, you know that there is possibly a portion of what you're eating that's not providing you the right nutrition for your nervous system to calm down. So, and that's individualistic. It really
Yeah,
is. Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Everyone's different. They need different diet.
Yeah.
I've been eating or drinking a lot of raw milk lately, and I've been trying to transition from pasteurized cheeses to raw cheeses, and I
Mhm.
find that that really helps my gut. And I know the gut-brain axis is a really big deal. I wrote about that in my book, Irritable Bowel Syndrome Relief.
Mhm.
And raw milk is legal to sell here in California. Is it available in Arizona where you are?
I've never had it, but I imagine it is. I haven't, Arizona's very lax on most things.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
definitely, especially the gun laws.
Yes, they are. Yes, Arizona's still wild, wild west for a lot of things.
Hmm. It is. I lived in Phoenix for a few months last year, and it was nice, a nice change from California with all the restrictions they have here.
Yep. California, there's just different state, different people in charge. So you can pick and choose where you want to live based on the
Hmm.
laws and what you're comfortable with. So that's good.
Yeah, yeah, that is nice about living in the United States. Each
Yeah.
state's a little different, and you can
Yeah.
pick and choose where you want to go.
Absolutely. Yes.
Well, this
Yeah.
has been a really great conversation. I really enjoyed talking with you. Do you want to tell us where we can connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So best way to connect with me is my website. It's paberinstitute.com. So P as in pain, A as in awareness, B as in breathing, R as in relief,
Hmm.
institute.com. You can go on there. You can reach out to me through that as well. And I do free 15-minute consults if you have questions and you want to learn more.
Fantastic. I might be hitting you up.
Sounds good. Oh, thank you.
Awesome.
I look forward to that conversation too.
Very cool. Well, thanks again, and bye, everybody.